Morning.
Again, we will start as usual, as normal. Try to settle your mind, body, calm down your mind, body. By focusing on your breath as you breathe in and out, naturally, normally. Then generate good intention, motivation for being here. We can reflect, contemplate and feel how lucky and fortunate we are to have this precious human life. And to be still alive, if nothing else. At least, even we don't have much, we have a roof to live in, something to eat and to survive. Therefore, I have to utilize this my precious human life in the most maximum, most beneficial way, most useful way as much as possible. there can be nothing more useful or meaningful than to be able to help, to be able to contribute, reduce the suffering and cause of suffering of not just oneself, one's family, but all humanity, all sentient beings as much as we can. And to be able to help and contribute directly, indirectly, as much as we can, according to our capacity, ability, in improving and increasing the happiness of all humanity, all sentient beings, all humankind, all sentient beings, as much as we can. And to be able to do that in most effective way, in most skillful way, in most beneficial way, I must actualize my full potential, the fully awakened state, fully enlightened state as quick as possible. For that I have to decrease and gradually eliminate all the disturbing, distracted thoughts, emotions, feelings. Whereas increasing, improving all the positive thoughts, positive emotions, such as true love, compassion, wisdom, so forth. To be able to do that, one must reflect, contemplate, meditate, practice correctly, continuously. For that we have to be reminded of those practices again and again by listening, reading, engage in discussions, reflection, contemplation, so forth. Therefore, I'm going to engage in listening, discussion, reflections, contemplations. So I might be reminded of those practices and give me inspiration to practice, so I can practice and begin to make some positive transformation in my heart. So I can be more beneficial to oneself and others. Okay.
Page 76 in the prayer book. Read the Heart Sutra.
I prostrate to the Hare. Thus did I hear one time the Bhagavan was dwelling on the Vulture's mountain in Navadviya, together with a great community of monks and a great community of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Bhagavan was absorbed in concentration on the categories of phenomena called profound perception. Also at that time, the Bodhisattva, Mahasattva, Arya, Avalokiteshvara looked upon the very practice of profound perfection and wisdom, and beheld those five aggregates, all sorts and in their heritage nature. Then, through the power of Buddha, the Venerable Shariputra said this to the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara. How should any son of lineage trained who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom? He said that, and the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara said this to the Venerable Shariputra. Shariputra, any son of the lineage or daughter of the lineage who wishes to practice the activity of profound perfection of wisdom should look on like this, regularly and repeatedly beholding those five aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. Form is empty, emptiness is form. Emptiness is not other than form. Form is also not other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discrimination, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, likewise, all phenomena are emptiness, without characteristics, unproduced, unceased, stainless, not without stain, not deficient, not fulfilled. Shariputra, therefore, in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no compositional factors, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no visual form, no sound, no odor, no taste, no object of touch, and no phenomenon. There is no eye element, and so on up to and including no mind element, and no mental consciousness element. There is no ignorance, no extinction of ignorance, and so on, up to and including no aging and death, and no extinction of aging and death. Similarly, there is no suffering, origination, cessation, and path. There is no exalted wisdom, no attainment, and also no non-attainment. Shariputra, therefore, because there is no attainment, Bodhisattvas rely on and dwell in the perfection of wisdom, the mind without obscuration and without fear. Having completely passed beyond error, they reach the end point of nirvana. All the Buddhas who dwell in the three times also manifestly, completely awakened to unsurpassable, perfect, complete enlightenment in reliance on the perfection of wisdom. Therefore, the mantra of perfection of wisdom, the mantra of great knowledge, the unsurpassed mantra, the mantra equal to the unequal, the mantra of who pacifies all suffering, should be known as truth, since it is not false. The mantra of perfection of wisdom is declared. Tayatara Mate Gate Paragate Parasamgate Bodhisattva. Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should train in profound perfection of wisdom like that. Then the Bhagavan arose from that concentration and commended the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, saying, well said, son of the lineage, it is like that. It is like that. One should practice the profound perfection of wisdom, just as is indicated. Even the Tathagatas rejoice. The Bhagavan having thus spoken, the Venerable Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, and those surrounding in their entirety, along the world of gods, humans, asuras, and devas, were overjoyed and highly praised that spoken by the Bhagavan. The extensive dispelling of hindrances on the next page. I and all surrounding sentient beings go for refuge to the Buddha, go for refuge to the Dharma, go for refuge to the Sangha. We prostrate to the Great Mother, Paramahansa, surrounded by all the children and by the assemblies of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions. By depending on my prostrations to all of you, may these words of truth be actualized. In the past, the Deva King Indra dispelled Mars by reflecting on the profound meaning of the wisdom of Vajrayana and reciting profound words in daily recitation. In the same way, I also reflect on the profound meaning of great Gita and recite the profound words in daily recitation. May all diseases, spirit possessions, bad conditions, all negative directions, that which happens due to past karma and immediate conditions, may all this be dispelled. May it become non-existent. May it be pacified. Turn to page either 97 or 98, depending on your book, for the short mandala offering. We'll do this first verse in Tibetan. Saji Kogi Juji Meto Tamri Ramli Sri Nidegen Hadi Sanghe Jingu compassion that form in the skies of your Dharmakaya wisdom, please release the rain of vast and profound Dharma, precisely in accordance with the needs of those to be trained. Niyam Guru Atmamangala Kamniyatayami. Refuge in bodhicitta, once in English, twice in Tibetan. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened, to the Buddha of the Dharma and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. Sangye Chodam Soki Chodam Va Chanchu Bardu Dagi Tapsuchi Dagi Chodam Ge Pe Sonamge Drola Benshir Sangye Druparsho Sangye Chodam Soki Chodam Va Chanchu Bardu Dagi Tapsuchi Dagi Chodam Ge Pe Sonamge Drola Benshir Sangye Druparsho.
So, good morning and good Mother Day.
Your Mother Day.
So today is supposed to remember the kindness of mothers, but I guess those who have been practicing Buddhism will try to remember every day by remembering, may all the mother sentient beings be free from suffering, cause of suffering, be happy, have a happy and cause of happiness. So, and so, again, not only special occasion like today, but we always try to remember in our heart every day. I know some of us has some of people had not greatest relationship with their parents, sometimes mothers, fathers, but also we have to remember a lot of time. We remember the mistake they made. We don't remember the good things they have done. We forget that easily. And that is very normal for us, not only with our parents, even with our friends, our partners, and so forth. If they have said one harsh word, it's very hard for us to forget that. If they have said thousands of good words, we don't remember them. We easily forget them. So sometimes it's very hard for us to let go of some of those bad feelings towards our parents, towards our mothers, because all we remember is the mistake that they might have made. And as we know, everyone makes a mistake. No one is perfect. Many of you are parent yourself, and you are trying very hard to not to make mistake and to bring your children in the best way as you could. But there are instances when sometimes you do make a mistake. Not because you want to make a mistake, but sometimes we lose our mind and we don't have the right wisdom all the time. So same way, our parents, despite trying their best to bring best in ourselves, to give only love and compassion and care, but sometimes they do make a mistake, just like ourselves. So we have to remember that and to learn how to let it go for whatever mistake they might have made. And not only remember that mistake they made, we also have to remember all the hardship that they have put in upbringing of us. As we all know, it's not easy, especially when you are very young, where you require, where constantly you require under the care all the time. So I because today is Mother's Day, I just wanted to kind of remind ourselves of those things. And then before we actually go into the main subject, the text itself, I just wanted to clarify something that not clarify, maybe make some announcement. That I will discuss and go through the text, and then those I will have maybe half hour, 20 minutes at the end of the sessions, and those who have questions or their thoughts, opinions, suggestions, sharings, whatever those are, if we can leave on the end, because there have been some from certain quite few of students who felt there's too much disruptions in between, and so sometimes you get lost because of that. So we still want to provide that platform for question, discussions, sharing, and that. So, but we would like to have at the end, so that so I hope you understand why we did that. So definitely we will have always 20 to half hour at the end of the session for that all the time. And again, you can always feel free to, without any hesitations, questions or sharings, your opinion, whatever that is, as usual, as normal. So then I think let me just summarize some of the things that we discussed last week. Is that a lot of time we get upset and angry because because we feel someone has we get angry and upset with someone because we feel they have done something harmful to us or our beloved one, by bringing suffering and pain directly to us or our beloved one, dear ones, near ones. As Shantideva said, but like such as our own very body, due to certain the way the constitutions of our body, and due to unbalancing of our own elements, then we do get sick, and because of the sickness we get pain, we experience pain, harm, and so forth. But still we don't get angry to those elements which produce those pain, sufferings. Also due to sudden natural disasters, it brings so much pain, sufferings, destroying in some cases everything. And due to those we feel pain, sadness, those. But we don't get so angry and we don't get angry to the nature. We don't hold so hatred, resentment, or grudges towards those nature. We just feel the pain and suffering, sadness, and then we move on. So if that is the case, then Shantideva is saying, if that is how we are able to do it, we should be able to do that also for someone who might have created pain and suffering in our life, to be able to let it go and not to get angry, not to hold hatred, resentment, grudges, and move on. If you can do that, then we don't create more pain and more suffering to ourselves. You have already suffered, you already experiencing pain due to those circumstances, whether it's brought by nature or someone. But when we get angry and when we hold the hatred and resentment, then on top of whatever pain, suffering we have already experienced, on top of that, we are creating more pain and more sufferings. So therefore, it makes much more sense to let it go and not to have those anger and such negative feelings and thoughts. And we do have the capacity to let it go, the ability to let it go. Just as we can let it go to the nature, Mother Nature, even when they bring so much pain and destructions. So we should be able to let it go even when someone brings pain and suffering in our life. We do have the capacity to do that, the ability to do that. And also, when we are able to let it go to one, let's say nature, for the destruction and pain, and when we are unable to let it go for someone for doing same thing, pain and suffering, bringing pain from, that means our mind is being kind of biased to some extent. Our mind is not being equanimity. It's same, both of them are bringing pain, sufferings from their perspective as well. So here, Shantideva is advising us, just as we are able to let it go to the nature because we think is very natural, without the intentions and so forth, planning, conscious planning and so forth. Also same way in most of the cases, when someone brings pain and suffering in our life, because they do that because they are out of control themselves. not because they have control over their self, not because they have control over their emotions, not because they have control over their anger and other delusions, and even though they have total control on that, and they intentionally, despite having control on that, they intentionally try to harm us. It's not the case, because during those stages, due to some of those negative emotions, so strong, they lose control of themselves. They lose control of their mind. And so therefore, that's why they're acting that way. If we understand that, then it is much easier to let it go. So I think we were on verse number 25. We just finished 24 and we are 25. All the mistakes that occur, how do you say? Occur, and all the virtues, all the various kind of wrongdoing arise through the force of conditions. They do not govern themselves. I want to just see the word for govern in others. Here is all defilement of whatever kind. The whole variety of the evil deeds are brought about by circumstances, non-independent, non-autonomous. So, what it is saying is that when someone act in an unhealthy, harmful way to us through their certain activities, such as their physical expressions, such as through their words, criticizing, using harsh words, or physically kind of even abusing, or disliking us, so forth. Normally, when they're acting that way, normally we get upset and angry, and we respond with that anger and that upsetness. Again, it doesn't help us, it doesn't help anyone by getting upset and anger. We all know that. So here he is saying we do not need to get angry and upset, and we can still be calm and peace, even in those situations. And how can we remain calm and peace and not to get upset and angry? By thinking, contemplating differently than the normal way. And the different way of looking at the situation differently here in these verses is understanding that they are not acting in that way because they have total freedom, total independence, total control on their situation themselves. But because they are acting that, because they are under the control of circumstances such as the anger and other delusions. So therefore, more than the person itself, what is more than the person itself who is creating that kind of situations is the person's delusions. So therefore, again, as he has mentioned before, if you need an object of anger, if you need to get anger and upset to something, get angry and upset to the delusion, not the person. Knowing that the person is acting under the influence, under the control of the delusions. Not because the person has total control of that delusions and those, and then he or she is acting that way. So if you can see, there is someone who is like a remote control behind that person, for the person to act in that way, you can understand the persons, and it is easy to let it go. For example, I think we see like in a certain circumstances, in a war and so forth, the politicians or the people who are on the top, they make the decisions whether to go in war or not. The normal army, they just follow their authority because that is what they are supposed to. That is their job. So we get more angry. We get more angry to the person who makes the decision, not the person who actually go in that, because they have been kind of forced by those. Similarly, in same cases, I don't know, maybe I gave the example is too harsh or too strong, but maybe another example might be children kind of bullying others, not because he wanted to, but there is bigger one who asked him to bully someone, otherwise he was going to punish him or beat him up. Do you get it? So if we understand, we will understand why this person, the young one who is trying to bully another young one, not because he or she wanted, not because he wanted to bully someone, but there's someone who is stronger, bigger than him, who is forcing him to do that. So then we are able to understand that person. We might not agree with his action, but we can feel that person and not to have anger. We understand why he is doing that. So it is just same. So we just have to think that way. And it's true. It's true that due to our anger and delusion, that is why we act in that way. If we don't have those anger and those delusion, we never act in that way. Same way the person, if he or she doesn't have those delusions, such as anger and delusion, he or she will not act the way he or she is acting at the moment. It is because of their own delusions, those afflicted emotions, those disturbing thoughts, that they are acting that way. So therefore, when we think that way, then it is much easier for us to let it go. When we think that they have total control, and then with that total, even though they have total control, they consciously, they intentionally try to act in that way, then it's more difficult to let it go. So that is what here the verse is saying. Then verse number 26. These conditions that assembly together have no intention to produce anything, and neither does their product have the intention to produce. Again, all the harms, all the pain, all the suffering that we experience in our life is not only due to other cause and conditions, but so many other cause and conditions, not just one cause and condition. There are so many external, internal cause and conditions. Yeah. in every situation, it's not just one cause and condition. There are so many cause and condition coming together. From one perspective, the involvement of our own karma. Not only the actions of someone's persons and the person's delusions, but also our own karma is involved there too. So there is another cause and conditions. And for such persons to have those delusions act that way, because again there are many other cause and conditions unseen, which we don't see it. He or she lost his mind because there was some misunderstanding, because there were miscommunications, because he or she heard something else from some other sources, or maybe because a lot of things going in his or her life, a lot of difficulties going in his or her life, therefore he or she is not happy, frustrated with his or her own life, and that activated his or her delusions even more. And then you happen to be at that place at that time. You happen to be near around them at that point, or you happen to be something. You have said something, even though maybe it was good intention. So many causes and conditions come together to activate that actions. And then as a result, then we experience that pain, suffering, harm, whatever you call it. But the point, the interesting point is, even though there are so many causes and conditions coming together to create that experience, we direct all our negative energy towards one cause and towards one cause and conditions, the person. The rest of all other cause and condition, we can let it go. But one is like so many cause conditions, and then you blame everything for just one cause condition when there is so many cause and condition involved. Again, that doesn't seem correct, right? So many cause and conditions come together, assembly together. Even though all these cause and conditions come together, but not all these cause conditions come together because they have intentions to come together and to create that experience or that result, the painful result, harmful result. They just come together. Certain cause conditions, certain energy come together, and it produces certain result. That's it. Not because they have an intention to come together to create that problems. Neither the result, the product, in these cases, the painful experience, the state of being suffering, painful, that result is not arises or is produced with the intentions by the cause and condition to produce that result. Neither that cause and condition has the intention to produce that result, neither that result is being produced, thinking that this cause and condition will produce that result. So that is, basically it is saying, is law of cause and effect. Just as sudden energy comes, volcano, then it explodes. There's no intention involved there. When sudden cause condition comes, there are hurricanes, When certain cause and condition come together, there's earthquake. There's no intention involved there to create such mass, to create such destructions. It just happens because certain cause and condition come together. Same way, even in our situations, in our everyday life, different experiences that we experience are very similar like that. Many cause and conditions come together, and then as a result, we experience pain, suffering. So, yeah. So, one cause condition comes, it effect connect with another cause and conditions, and it affect another, and then together, then it produces such result. If certain cause and condition were there, but not all cause and condition there, it will not produce that result. Person is acting that way. My karma is not involved there. What did you say? Okay. Doesn't make sense, but I don't get so upset and angry and painful. Oh, what you are saying is just garbage. It doesn't make sense. But it doesn't really affect me in a negative way where I feel so pain, suffering. But when my karma is involved, the person said the same thing, then everything's... Or maybe sometime the person says there, and you are there, and because of again, maybe karmically involved, you don't hear what he or she said, so you don't get upset and angry, because you didn't hear what he or she said, even though he or she said something nasty, something harmful. Or someone is really in that mood to kind of explode his and you just happen to be there at that time. And you become the object of that explosions. If you are not there, you will not receive that explosions. Someone might. Or no one is there, he or she might explode in somewhere else. So you see, there are so many cause and condition involved. All so many from different angles, different forces come together, and then it creates that result. It's not just one, two cause and condition. So many cause and condition involved. So I think it is very important for us to understand that, because a lot of time we just see one cause and condition, it is you. There's nothing else involved there. There's nothing involved with my karma, there's nothing involved with all these other cause and condition involved there. It's just you. And so that is why it is very difficult to us to let it go. To let it go. So therefore, if we understand all these so many different, then we will not feel so harsh, so much anger, so much hatred, so much resentful just for that person. Even you do get some anger, it will be much more smaller, because it is he or she is not only the cause for that. His or her contribution is very small, very tiny contributions, if there is. At the moment, we see his or her contribution. For this whole experience is all his or her creations. Now we begin to see it is a very tiny contribution that he or she made in this, for that experience. So therefore, definitely it makes it much easier to let it go. Then, So up to here, Shantideva try to explain how things exist, not because they have total control, independent, but because of interdependent, because of many cause and condition coming together, how the result are produced. So then here to that, then there is some kind of argument from some of the non-Buddhist philosopher school of philosophy, argument that the explanation that he did. So 27, that which is asserted as a primal substance and that which is imputed as self, since they are unproduced, do not arise. After having purposefully thought, I shall arise in order to cause harm. Let me see the other translations. The primary substance, as they say, and that which has been called the self, do not arise designately, and do not think I will become. So anyway, there is one school, Samkhya, non-Buddhist philosophy school, or Samkhya non-Buddhist school, and they accept and believe in this primal substance, which is pervasive with all the phenomena, and which is permanent, underlying substance material. And so that is so. From their point of view, such primal substance is the creator of the world, is the creator of all our experiences, painful or joyful experiences. So from their point of view, this primal substance has total control, is independent, permanent, and it decides whether you have painful or joyful, whether it is harmful or whether it is helpful. In the same way, another non-Buddhist school where they believe Atma, the soul, the consciousness, the self, which is permanent, partless, autonomous. Such Atma, which experience different experiences, is again have total independent, total control. So from their point of view, there is total kind of control, independent willpower. I don't know, willpower, can you say willpower? Mm-hmm. Willpower from their side. So that is the argument. So here Shantideva is saying, so therefore, Shantideva is making argument here that he is saying, those, whether it is the Atma, the self, such self, Atma, or the substantial, primary substance, do not have the wish to say, I'm going to create this harmful situation, to create this painful experience, or to create this, in this case it's harmful, because such creator, the substance, primary substance, or self, Atma, does not exist at all. If it does not exist, then how can that create something? If there is no existence of that, then how can that create something, some result? So that is But I think we won't go in details on all their argument, whether this exists or not. Okay, it will be kind of take too much time and too much complications. Let's not go into too detail in that. So that is what it's saying. And then verse number 28, continuity of that discussion between two of them. Shantideva trying to defend the Buddhist concepts, that how everything is interdependent, depend on cause conditions, which he explained before. If they are unproduced and non-existent, of course, from their point of view, they will say it is produced. Well, they will probably believe unproduced. They will say permanent, as they say is permanent. But non-existent, they will not accept that. They will say it is existence. From Buddhist point of view, non-existence from Buddhist point of view. So anyway, if they are unproduced and non-existent, then whatever wish they have to produce, harm will not also not exist, since this self would permanently apprehend its objects. It follows that it will never cease to do so. So here he is making a point. If it is from Buddhist point of view, it is non-existence, and because it's non-existence and it is non-produced, permanent, so therefore it cannot. Whatever wish they have to produce will not be able to produce it. And there wouldn't even be a wish, because there is not such self and not such that produced by such self. There is no wish produced by such self and primary substance. The second point is that if it is permanent, as you said, the self, then when the self apprehends the objects, it will have to apprehend the object all the time, because it's permanent. If it apprehends sometime, it doesn't apprehend sometime, then it is not permanent. It is changing. The self is changing. Your mind is changing if your mind is not apprehending the object all the time, same object. Sometimes my mind is apprehending this cup, sometimes my mind is not apprehending. That means that my mind is not permanent. It's changing. So he is saying, if it is that, if it is permanent and apprehending permanently the object will never cease. So at least from Buddhist point of view, whether there is object or not, it depends on the subjective, which apprehend that object. They are kind of interdependent. So the mind which apprehend the valid cognitions which apprehend this cup, establish this cup to exist. Okay? So here is saying the cup and the object which depend on each others to existence of each of them. We see this cup being seized or destroyed, disintegrated with our experience. We don't need any reason, logic, something. Our own direct experience know that this cup get disintegrated, it get destroyed, that. So here he is making, if this cup get destroyed, at that point, the mind apprehending cup will also change. The mind apprehending cup cannot be there when cup is destroyed. But in your case, if it's permanent, it will be always there. Since the mind apprehending the cup is always be there, the cup will always be there. So the cup cannot be destroyed and cannot be seized. So then he's saying there is a contradiction. Contradiction to your direct experience. So that is what he's trying to make point in that. If the self is permanent and is apprehending the object permanently, then there is a contradiction with our direct experience. That this cup will never be seized. this cup can never be destroyed, because the mind or the self apprehend this cup is always there. So that is the point he's trying to make. So I think it will go a little bit of discussions here. Few verses now, and then again it come to maybe this is maybe not in, maybe this is a little bit complicating, because it's a discussion between two philosophy. Okay, so we'll have a short break. Yeah. Shantideva continue to kind of make an argument, whether you can say defending himself or negating. And again, verse number 29 is, furthermore, if the self were permanent, as you say, it would clearly be devoid of actions like a space. So it is saying, if the self is permanent, as you say, is permanent, partless, autonomous, then it cannot produce any harm or any help through actions or through functioning of that self or through the actions of that self, because it will be devoid of any actions of that functioning, because it's permanent. It will be just like this, like space. Such as space which okay. So even if it met with other conditions, how could its unchanging nature be affected? So if you say that it is a permanent by nature, but due to certain other conditions, external other conditions, then it is able to function, it is able to be in actions which bring harm and pain and help and joyful experience. So here he is saying, if it is permanent, even when other conditions come together, how can it change? Because it's impermanent. If it changes when other conditions come together, then it means it's impermanent. It's ever changing, impermanent. So then it is contradictions to what you say is permanent. The self being permanent is there is contradictions, because it is able to change when you met with other circumstances, conditions, and then it is able to function and so forth. Then again, he is trying to go more logic. Even if when acted upon by other conditions, it remains as before, then what could action do to it? So if you say the nature of the self doesn't change, it never changed the state from being at the very beginning before it meet the conditions, and even after it meet conditions, the nature of the self is permanent, self unchanging. Before the condition come together or after condition come together, if it doesn't change, if you say that it doesn't change, then he's saying, then what would action do to it? So then how is it that it is able to produce harm, pain, and so forth, if it is never changes from the very first and this moment? First moment when there was no condition involved, and this moment when it is condition involved. So if the nature of that has not changes, then how it is able to produce the harm and so forth? So then what could action do to it? it cannot make any differences. It doesn't make any differences. Thus, if I said that this condition act upon a permanent self, how could the two ever be causality related? So here is saying, when we talk about cause and conditions, well, so again he's negating his point from another point of view, from the point of view of what we call, I think it is translated relationship, but I think maybe not a relationship in ordinary relationship, but in a relationship between two objects. And normally there is two kind of relationship. The relationship of two objects in being same nature, in same nature, and the relationship between two objects which is not same nature, but it cause and effect. So here he is trying to kind of negate, saying you're saying that this self is permanent, doesn't have any of those relationships with the actions and with the result that it produces. So it is saying if that permanent self is producing the result, such as different experience, harmful experience, painful experiences, then it is cause and conditions. It becomes cause and conditions. And because you say it's permanent, how can it be cause and conditions? So this relationship with cause and condition breakdowns. So it doesn't have that cause and conditions. And the other relationship, because they are separate, because they are not one nature, the action itself and the nature of that self itself. Then it goes in verse number 31. Hence, everything is governed by other factors, which in turn are governed by others. And in this way, nothing governs itself. So here is saying, he's kind of summarizing everything that he has discussed so far. Summarizing everything, he's summarizing every experience, painful experience, joyful experience, every actions, harmful actions, helpful actions, which affect our feelings towards the situations and the object which produce, or subject which produce that situations. Here's everything, all different experience, all different events, actions, they are governed or governed by other factors, cause and conditions. And such factors are also governed by others. So it is like such as delusions and so forth. And all these delusions are governed by our presiding delusions, or our imprint of the delusions. So everything's interdependent. One situation's kind of affected by one cause and condition, another cause and conditions, such as cause and condition are affected by another cause and conditions. Such cause is affected by another cause and condition is continuity of different cause and conditions, preceding cause and condition leading to the next stage, the following cause and conditions. So none of those is independent. The experience itself, the situation itself, the cause and condition of such experience and event itself, they all are interdependent, interrelated, by depending on so many cause and conditions. So he negating the concept of that is governed by all this experience, all this situation, being governed by permanent self and permanent primary substance. So he's negating that, saying that there is nothing which is kind of governor, independently kind of established and produced without depending on other causes and conditions. Yeah. Having understood this, I should not become angry with phenomena which are like aberrations. So having understood that every event, every situation, every experience depend on so many hundreds, thousands of different causes and conditions, if not millions and billions. With understanding that there are, among many of those causes and conditions, the primary cause and conditions is the delusion itself, the afflicted emotion themselves, the imprint of the delusions, the imprint of the karma, and so forth. With that understanding, then we begin to not to blame on the persons, and then we try to let it go, and not to get upset and angry with that persons. Also seeing every situation, every experience, also the subject which we blame, and the object which we feel the victim, seeing all of them as like a dream, apparitions, like a dream state, like illusions, and then let it go, and not to get angry. So the more we see, the more we feel, more concrete, more solid of that situation, that experience, the subjects, the objects, the more stronger the emotion is. But when you are able to see it, instead of so concrete and so solid and so real, but it as more like dream state, less concrete. If you see it as more like apparitions, more as an illusion state, then there's nothing to hold on, grasp on, cling on so tightly. When you don't have any objects to hold on so tightly, so concretely, so solidly, naturally your feeling, your emotion begin to loosen up, holding on very tightly. When you are able to do that, then it's much easier to let it go, and not to get so upset, not to get so angry, not to hold resentment, hatred, grudges, and so forth. It's just like our mind has similar, like if these objects, the more solid, my hand is able to grasp it more tightly, but there's nothing more solid than there's nothing for my hand to really grasp and hold, cling so tightly. In the same way, if you observe our feelings, the more you feel, more solid, more concrete, more real, your mind grasps more tightly, cling more tightly. hold it more tightly. When you started to cling and hold more tightly, the emotion is much more stronger. Emotion is much more stronger. But when you begin to, even you might be grasping, you might be clinging, you might be holding, but you feel there's no object to do that so strongly, then your mind begin to loosen up, holding, grasping, clinging tightly. As you loosen up that, then whatever feeling of pain, feeling of anger, whatever that, it loosen up. It loosen up. So therefore, with that kind of understanding, with that kind of realizations, then we'll try to let go of the anger, as well as we might be also to let go of feeling of sad, pain, so forth, as quick as possible. I think when we have a strong feeling of that, with a strong feeling of anger or a strong feeling of sadness, grief, pain, whatever that is, if you notice it, if you observe those states, those emotions with our one corner of our mind, if we are able to observe it without driving yourself into that emotions, or yourself becoming that emotions, and totally in the middle of that emotions, you see those emotions arises at the same time. If we have the skillful means to observe from one corner of our mind to that feeling, that emotions. When you have those small emotions, there's feeling of very concrete, very solid, very real of that emotion itself, and the object or the actions or situations which lead to that emotions. The actions or the circumstances or situations seem so real, so solid, so more solid, more real, more concrete. Also the person, the subject, also yourself, which you feel victim, also the emotion itself. So at that time, if we learn, observe that emotions, and then try to investigate, analyze the emotion itself. For example, whether it's anger, whether it's grieving, whether it's pain, whether it's sadness, whatever that is, you feel so real, so strong, so concrete. Where is that emotions? Where is that emotions? Is it in my head? Is it in my heart? Is it in my lower part? Where to? Trying to find an exact location, not just generalizing somewhere here. If it is somewhere here, you have to be able to localize there where it is. Just like when we do, like for example, when we have sickness, whatever those sickness, if you go, then you should be able to localize and say it is here and remove that. So in same way, if there is that, where exactly where it is, trying to find, and also trying to see what is that? What is that? That emotions which I call grieving, worries, pain, sadness, what is that? Or anger. What is the nature of that emotions? What is the nature of that emotions? It is concrete, not concrete? Is continuity, what kind of continuity? Is it just an awareness? Is it just a So trying to go more deeper, trying to find out what exactly is. When you do that, just by doing that, if we do properly with a strong concentration, without a lot of kind of distractions, that very moment the emotions started to kind of become weak, loosen up. Regardless of whatever conclusion you come out of it, that investigations. Out of that investigation, still you might feel, oh, maybe I couldn't locate, pinpoint, but it is somewhere there. I feel somewhere there. Or maybe you might come to some kind of conclusion that there is no such independent, so solid, so absolute emotion as I felt at the very beginning. It was totally different than how I felt it, the way I believe when I have that emotions. So when you do that, then definitely just doing that kind of analysis can make a huge difference how you feel about it. Even it might not be totally kind of let it go of all the anger, let it go of all the grief, all the pain, but the intensity of that decreases. Intensity of that decreases. Then verse number 32. If everything is unreal, like apparitions, then who is there to restrain what anger? Surely in this case, restraint would be inappropriate. It would not be inappropriate because conventionally I must maintain that independent upon restraining anger, the stream of suffering is severe.
Cut.
So in the previous verse number 31, because Shantideva said that we have to look everything as like a dream state, everything like a illusion, everything like a aberrations. So then now next argument kind of questions comes. If that is then why do we, if everything is like that, the persons, yourself, who is trying to restrain anger, who's trying to overcome anger, there's no reason to overcome the anger because yourself is like dream state. The anger is set like a dream state. It's the dream. The anger itself is like aberrations. Yourself is aberration who is trying to overcome the anger. So there is no reason to do that practice, or it's not appropriate. If you come with that, then he is saying, yes, it is like a dream state. It is like a aberration state. Everything's the persons, the subjects, the object yourself, the anger itself, the actions, the person who created itself. Even though they are not so solidly existence, no concretely existence as we feel, even though they are not truly inherently existence, but conventionally they exist. And because conventionally they exist, because of that we experience the pain due to such situations and due to anger as well. We experience pain due to such situation, due to anger as well. So because we experience that, because they are existing on conventional level, so therefore on conventional level, we have to restrain ourselves from restrain or overcome the anger, because that anger brings more suffering, more pain. That anger is source of pain and suffering. So therefore, even though it is not inherently existent, and because it is not inherently existent, it's more like dream state, more like illusions, more like apparitions. But because on conventional level, it brings us pain, sufferings, so therefore we have to restrain, overcome those delusions such as anger on conventional level. So that is the answer that he is trying to give to that question. So I think we have around 20 minutes. So any questions? Any whatever, feel free. Someone had to start, then we come. Normally. And also sometimes one of the reasons why I didn't stop that before is I also quite often notice, not only here, even in different places, especially people, if they don't bring their pain and caution, so this, while I'm teaching, they have some caution on that. But after that, they forget what the caution was by the end of it, because they haven't bring any pain or anything to write down when they have something in their mind, and so that is one thing I kind of observed and found very often, not only here, in many places. And so that is why also before I wasn't kind of, my mind was in dilemma kind of. But I think because a lot of people have, yes, please.
I wrote this down.
Yeah, please.
So early on when you were talking, I wrote down, does this give the lie to people who are called control freaks? Do you know what I'm saying?
I'm not 100% sure. Control freak.
They see if nothing exists inherently, and but these types of people always want to think that they are in control of every situation. So they go through their life doing that and like trying to arrange everything and everyone that they meet. So they would probably be a totally delusional individual, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I mean, you can try your best to control and plan, but reality, the fact is, you cannot control it, and you can try your best, and you might be able to control to some extent, but not totally. I mean, all of us want to have total control over our life, and we have been trying very hard.
They don't want to lose control of their emotions, so they go about thinking that they can control situational, occurrences.
I think once through the practice you can reach a point where you can control your emotions, but I cannot control the nature and everything around me. That is the thing. I cannot control the impermanent that is happening, impermanent of my physical body. I try to control with all medication, everything, the best equipment, everything. I can do to some extent, but I cannot totally control. I don't want to get old. I don't want my body to I don't want to die. I can control, I try to control, but the reality, the fact is, I will never be able to stop it from dying, from getting old. Same things, the changes of the nature. We like to control, and we have been trying, but have not been successful so far. And I don't think we can really totally control. We can predict certain things. As with the new, better technology, we can predict that is happening, it's going to happen this month, this year, this today. We can do such prediction better, but can we stop? So that is. But in terms of our own emotions, definitely through practice, through training, through learning, we can come to a state where we can have we have control over our own emotions. But not in a general whole life, whole world in that sense. Yeah. Yes, please. Okay.
I have a question about delusion. This verse 32 to me was similar to something I've read in, I think, verse 123 on the chapter on wisdom, talking about the delusions or the projections, and a response to the argument was that they are projections based on the delusions embraced in order to support what has to be done, something along those lines. And I'm wondering that this is that we have this saying that we have to embrace these certain delusions in order to know what projection, or in order to project the things that are necessary for us to practice compassion and loving kindness in the first place. And if that's the case, are some delusions necessary for us?
I wouldn't say it's necessary. Just as pain is not necessary, suffering is not necessary. But with the suffering, we can learn a lot if we can utilize it properly. It's not necessary, but if we do experience it, if we learn how to get best of it, we can learn so much. Through that suffering, we learn to have a better understanding of others' feelings, we can develop compassion and so forth. But can someone develop a compassion without suffering? I think absolutely possible. Absolutely possible. It's not a necessity, but it is when we do get it, we see something positive and transform it in that way. Same with the delusions. When we do have, it's not necessary. We don't have to embrace it. It's not like I want the delusions. It's best if I can overcome delusion as quick as possible. But at the same time, when I'm still under the control of delusions, and when delusion arises, instead of it freak me out, I just observe it and try to understand that feelings, try to understand that delusions, how destructive it is, how it affects me, how it affects others when I have that delusions. So therefore, I'm more aware of my own feelings, my own those state of mind, so that I'm more careful and know how to deal with it better, because I understand it more fully through my own observation of my own feelings, of those delusion feelings. Also I understand, also it helps you to understand, to have compassion to others, because when you have gone through that delusion from lesser angle, and you have noticed how destructive it is, how destructive it is, how much pain it brings to you. So when you see someone angry, you understand that. Oh, I understand how much pain, suffering that he is going through because of that anger. And you know through because of your own experience. So therefore, you will have a more sympathy or maybe even compassion to that person instead of getting so angry and freak out. So in that sense, your delusion has been helpful to understand that. But also it is not necessary to be able to understand that as well. I think that is another way of transforming the delusion into something positive. And if we can transform that, that is wonderful. That's great. So it can be very useful in that sense.
I understand that, but do we need the delusions in order to actually, I guess, project those beings which actually aren't supposed to exist from their own side in the first place?
Can you repeat the
I mean,
question?
do we have to be delusional, I guess, in the conventional sense? I know the objective is to rid ourselves of all the delusions. And in order to do that, we have to, since we're in the conventional realm, we actually live in the conventional realm, and that's rooted in delusion. But we need that. So it's like circular logic to me. It's like we need the delusion in order to eventually apply the remedies in the conventional realm to rid ourselves of the delusion. Does that make sense?
Well, I think that is the fact and reality, but I don't know whether I will say that's necessary. That is the fact and reality, that we are in samsara, and then we have delusions, and that in order to get out of that delusions, of course, we have the delusions. But not only for example, even the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas or Arhat, still they also live in conventional world as well, and that they don't need the necessary of the delusions in order to understand to overcome that delusions. So yeah. So even the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, they live in both conventional and ultimate reality, experience both of these realities, and so it doesn't mean they are out of conventional world. Yeah. Yes, please.
Well, maybe, I don't know if I'm taking it one step farther, but simply, do you need delusions in order to perceive the conventional world?
No. Arhat and the Buddhas, they have no delusion and they perceive both reality, conventional, ultimate reality, perfectly at the same time, and able to function in a conventional world perfectly. So you don't need delusion to be able to see that the conventional world. Yeah. Yes.
Well, I was going to use Lama Zopa as an example, the way he's handling the earthquake. How he just like immediately, presently took charge, and without apparently being frightened or anything, was able to give all the love and compassion necessary to get the situation under control as best possible. He must be some sort of bodhisattva or something even greater than that.
Yeah, I mean, it is very individual. It is very individuals. Personally, I do feel that he is a bodhisattva. There is no doubt. Personally, I feel that he is someone who has develops true compassion, true love, bodhicitta. Personally, I have no doubt about that part. But again, this is my personal feelings. I could be totally wrong. I'm not saying I cannot be wrong, but my observations, being around him, observing his actions over so many years, I have no doubt about that in my case. And as you said, I mean, it was incredible. I mean, there are stories of Lama Zopa doing the same thing in the past. People have shared, like, they were having meditations. That is a long time ago. Some of students, Western students, they were, and then it started to shake. It wasn't, I think, maybe as big as like this one, but smaller ones. And everyone kind of freaked out, and she just seems there, very, very calm, and just, he continued to lead the meditation, he didn't freak out, he didn't do anything. And she doesn't seem to be afraid, or he doesn't seem to be that. And I guess maybe I don't know, maybe he knew, maybe it wasn't so so bad that they need to freak out and that they need to get out of it. And it stopped and nothing really happened except it shook. This time I don't know whether he was in the. I think they told me he was in the building. Yeah. And but of course he came out of that after it shook it, and then he stayed with the rest of the monks outside and for maybe weeks, maybe 1 week or over a week, and he teach and he guide the monks and to be. And as you said, he immediately started to start this relief, and he contributed $50,000 immediately for in that fund, and then he started that fund and trying to send those wherever is needed. And one of the comment that he made when he was teaching at that time was that someone had sent that teachings a little bit, and he was saying, it was quite interesting for me at least. He was saying that people who doesn't meditate and think about death, when such things happen, such earthquake and such tragedy, they get a lot of fear and afraid and like that. But if someone who has been meditating on death impermanent every day, she will not freak out, and she will not be so afraid and so fear of. So at least that was what he said, and it seems to kind of saying from his experience, I guess, that for him, he didn't say that was his experience, but it seems that because in his cases that he's meditating, reflecting, contemplating death impermanent every day, that because he feels that death could come any moment, not just intellectually but experientially, that he understands and feels that death could come any moment, in any circumstances, in anywhere, in any form. So therefore it is something not his kind of unexpectedly something happening. And so for him there is less fear and less kind of that. And so that was, again, I think, one of the strong points he made during the teaching at that time. And yeah. So I think, yeah. So maybe before we decide the prayers, maybe we take a few moments. Due to all the positive karma, merit, virtues that we have created, may the Dharma, the message of love, compassion, and non-violence spread and benefit countless sentient beings. May His Holy Dalai Lama, Captain Lama Sumbarumas, all other gurus, holy beings who embodied those teachings, may they have long, healthy life, so they can inspire and help other beings continuously. All their wishes be fulfilled. May all sentient beings who are sick, physically, emotionally, mentally, being affected by different situations, may they recover from all those sickness as quick as possible. And have a better good health and have a long healthy life. May all sentient beings who have died, wherever they are now, may they be free from all the fear, suffering, cause of suffering, find a peace, have a perfect human birth, meet the Dharma, actualize the Dharma, and achieve enlightenment in that very lifetime. May all sentient beings who are having a different obstacle in their life, may all the immediate cause and condition for the obstacles and the karma and all the delusions, which are the fundamental cause and conditions, may they immediately be pacified. all their wishes will fulfill according to the Dharma. May each and every sentient beings be able to actualize and fully develop true love, compassion, bodhicitta, wisdom, understanding, emptiness as quick as possible. Those who have already actualized, not decrease but increase more and more. Due to this time of merit which empty is on side, may I, which empty is on side, achieve fully enlightened state which empty is on side, and lead all sentient beings which are empty is on side to a fully enlightened state as quick as possible which empty is on side. Okay.
Page 235, the general dedication first. There's 2 verses there in Tibetan. Page 244. For the long life prayers, but we read in Tibetan also.
Thank you very much, and have a wonderful Mother Day again.
Thank you.
Yeah.